Hello everyone, it's Cassie here. I hope you had a great weekend. Welcome back to my YouTube channel for another video. Today we're going to be playing with some of the brand new Simon Hurley Create products. I have the Birthday Basics stamp set, the candles background, and the candles stencil. We're going to make 3 cards today, so let's get started with our first one. I'm going to ink up our candles background with some shady ink. It's just a really nice dark gray ink. I think it's just really pretty. It's a perfect addition to all the colors in his line. I'm going to take a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I'm just going to lay that right down onto that rubber stamp and just press with my fingers. Red rubber stamps the best, honestly, out of all stamps. See, take a look at that. It worked perfectly. And then we're going to move on to taping this down to my Tonic platform because we're going to use that stencil that coordinates so perfectly with this stamp. And you wouldn't have to do this, but this is a very quick and easy way to make a background. I'm going to just use some of those magnets to tack that down. And I have some Overzealous ink and some blending brushes. Those ones are by Trinity Stamps. And I forgot to put a magnet up on that upper left-hand corner, so we're going to do that now. And then I'm going to start with that Overzealous on the left-hand side and bring that in towards the middle, getting a little bit lighter as we go, but just love how that's coming along. Of course, like I said, you don't have to use the stencil. You could just color this with alcohol markers or watercolor it or however you want to do it. The next color I am bringing in is some Tropical Tango. That's going to go on that center there, and I'm bringing it over towards the right. And then our final color that we're bringing in is some Triple Berry. Now I'm going to use just these colors that you've seen here. I'm going to add in just some Shooting Star a little bit later to some of these, but this is what I want to do for all 3 cards. I want to focus on these 3 colors. This is an easy way to make up like 3 cards or even 5 cards, just, you know, depending on the style that you want to go for. But you could make these up and hand these out as a gift if you wanted to, like a little set of note cards for somebody. So I'm going to clean up my mess using some water. I'm going to tack that down, and I'm going to grab the other part of this stencil, which is just the candle pieces or the light themselves. And I'm going to bring in some Shooting Star Lunar paste. And this is just going to add a nice shiny element to it. I've got one of my palette knives from Simon Hurley Create, and I'm just going to keep blending that, or not blending it, but putting that across my stencil till I get all of those candles taken care of. And it doesn't really do much seeping underneath. As long as you've got that flush up against your piece of paper, it shouldn't squish underneath too much. But I love these lunar pastes. They're nice and shiny. I have had 0 issue with them drying out, and I have almost the full collection. I'm just missing 2. All right, so we'll pull that away and you can see how pretty that looks. But I'm going to clean up my mess just using water. If you get a lot on there, you could take that up to the sink and clean that off, but water will do the trick as well. All right, so take a look at that. It's that shiny candlelight. It's super pretty. And I love how those 3 colors blended together. Now, I decided I was going to go ahead and try to stamp right onto my panel. I originally was thinking I wanted this to be a 1-layer card. And when I stamped that down using that VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, which is a pigment ink, I like it, but it doesn't stand out enough for me. So I'm going to take some Vellum. And I've got some Vellum, I've got some Clair embossing powder, and I'll use that same ink that I had. I'm going to stamp that Happy Birthday down on top of there. That again comes from the Birthday Basics stamp set. And then I'll cover that with some Clair embossing powder. And then I'm just going to heat set that real quickly, moving my heat gun all along, you know, quickly, because you don't want to burn your paper. And then once that is melted, I'm going to trim this down. I usually don't have any issue with stamping down on top of what I've just created. I say that because if I don't like it, I'll cover it. I'm not worried about it. So I'm going to match that up with the lettering underneath, and then we'll just fold over our edges of the vellum. And that just makes it that much easier to fold those edges over because this adhesive will show through. So there really aren't too many adhesives you can use that won't show through vellum. So by just wrapping that around the edge and just taping it down like that, I take care of that issue. All right. And now no one really knows that I stamped down on it first. I'm going to trim this panel down just on those longer sides by about 1/8 of an inch. And that way I can have the cardstock that I've picked out. It'll show through just on the top and the bottom. And this measures 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So I'll score that at 4 1/4. So this will be an A2 size card. And see, that blue will show on the top and the bottom. But I do want to add a sentiment to the inside. One of the things I love about these Simon Hurley Create, the bigger stamp sets that he has, is that he always adds lots of sentiments that you could use on the inside of your cards. And because I love to do something on the inside of my cards, that just makes me happy. So we're going to take some liquid glue and we're going to adhere down our panel to the front of our base. That'll just make this a super easy mailer. And once that's down, that'll finish off our first card of 3 cards. How pretty is that? All right, let's move on to our second card. I'm going to bring in mostly just the Birthday Basics. Yeah, actually, that's the only thing I'm going to use is the Birthday Basics stamp set. This one stamp is like some confetti, and because I hadn't used it before, I was just rubbing it on my hand. All that does is kind of condition the stamp a little bit. And I'm going to ink that up with our Triple Berry ink. And here comes Miles to check it out. And then I'll clean that off, and then I'm going to bring in our Tropical Tango, clean that off, and then our Overzealous. And we're just going to keep going back and forth with these colors, moving this confetti piece all along there, trying to get that lined up fairly well. I don't do the best job, but that's okay. It's just kind of a background. If you're really concerned about it being straight, you could put it into a MISTI or a stamp positioner. That would help. But I'm happy with this, and we're just going back and forth with those colors. Like I said, I love the idea of making up little gift sets of cards because oftentimes I need cards to give out, or I'm looking for gifts that I need, and a set of cards is always great. We always seem to need birthday cards. Thank you cards are another one I like to do a lot of. And then, like I said, we'll have 3 cards here that are all following the same color pattern or color palette. All right, once that's on there, I am going to stamp out our candle or our birthday cake with the candles onto some more of our cardstock. And I used the Shady ink once again. And then I'm just going to use my Olo alcohol markers to color these in. And again, following that same color palette. I've got those colors up on the screen for you. I'll bring in a darker of this one and just add a little bit of shading there. But this is super simple coloring. This doesn't take a lot of effort. And then I've brought in a warm gray for the edge of our cake, just to add some shadowing there as well. Then we've got a blue-green for our candles. And I'll bring in one more darker one, just to add some shading to our candles. And then I'll blend that out just a tiny bit with that lighter color. And then for our cake stand, I'm going to bring in a yellow-green. And then I'll use a darker color on that one as well, just to kind of just add a little bit of darkness to it. It's not a lot to be real significant. And then I'll just bring in a lighter color for our candles. And then I'm going to fussy cut this out. But guess what, folks? If you don't like fussy cutting, there is a matching die. So you don't have to fussy cut if you don't want to. All right, for our sentiment, once again, I'm going to bring in that Shady ink, but I've decided I want to trim this down. I have picked out colors of cardstock that match all of the colors that I've been using. So I want those to show on the sides. I love that, sending birthday hugs and well wishes. And then this one says, bring on the cake. So I'll stamp that on the inside of our card. Love it. And then I'll attach down my panel to my base using some more of that liquid glue. But for our cake, I've decided I want to pop that up using some foam squares. So I'm just going to use some foam squares that I have and put that all over the back of our cake. And then I'll peel off all of those release papers. And then we can stick that down on the front of our card. And then that's going to finish off our second card. And I'm super happy with how that one turned out. All right, so let's move on to our third and final card today. I am going to use the peel apart candles. Now, someone had asked about these peel aparts. If you peel them apart, is that it? Like, you can't now have a background. No, that's the beauty of the peel aparts. You can peel this piece off, use it just as it is, like I'm doing, and then you can put it right back with the rest of the stamp, match, line it all up, and you have your background again. It's super simple to do. But I just wanted the one set of candles, so we're going to bring in, I just can't help it, I have to bring in that stencil again. I thought about just coloring it, but I just could not help myself. I really, really, really love using the stencil with it. So that's what I'm going to do. And of course, you could use this stencil completely by itself as well. You wouldn't have to have the stamp set, but it's so much more fun to do it like this. So I'm bringing in our triple berry. That is our top color. And then I'm going to bring in our tropical tango at the bottom. I love how when those overlap, you get a third color. So that is one of those things about these inks that is just fabulous. They blend well together to create new colors. All right, you'll notice that it does leave a little bit of a white line at the bottom, but I'm not worried about that because I do need to trim this down anyway, because again, I chose some colored cardstock that I wanted for the background. That's just some shooting star ink, and I blended that over our candles. And now I'm just going to trim this piece down a little bit on each side. And then I need to stamp my sentiment on there. So again, but this time I've chosen to use our VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, so it's nice and crisp and black. And then this card, once again, is A2, 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4. And then we can attach down our panel to our base. And I'm just going to leave the border on our right-hand side, and then I'll ink up one more stamp and put that on the inside of our card. And then that's going to finish off our third card today. So let's go ahead and take a look at all 3 cards that I made using this stamp set and that same color palette. I would love to know which one was your favorite, if you did in fact have a favorite, or maybe you just like the color palette. Hopefully this will just inspire you to maybe want to pull out a stamp set and do like a 3-card kind of thing with it. Challenge yourself. It's super fun. If you like this video, hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.